Character customization is a feature that can really add to a player's experience by allowing them to make their own unique looks. And so today, I'm going to be adding this to Zedcab with new car models, paint jobs and decals. So welcome back to the devlog, my name is Geeze and I've been working on my arcade style driving game called Zedcab for a little while now. So what customization is currently in the game? Well, when I drew up the initial car, I left the body white and on a separate layer to the outline, which means that if I come into Unity, I can change the colour of the car without changing the windows or tyres. Now this is technically character customization. I could have this be something the player can change in the garage, but that's not exactly exciting. So let's design something new. The first thing I want to do is add a few new models of car to the game. It's all good having this bog standard sedan, but I want some variety there. So let's open up paint.net, the program I do all my pixel art stuff in, and see what I can come up with. So I want this initial wave of designs to be more grounded in reality. These are cars and similar vehicles. I just want to get them into the game first. In the future, I'll probably introduce some more interesting designs. I've already planned a few of them, like a Flintstone style vehicle, a sci-fi hovercraft, a T-Rex with guns on its back, that kind of thing. I just started by drawing basic outlines for cars and then adding in a bit of detail. It's quite hard making it obvious what they're supposed to be with so few pixels, but hopefully you can see what I'm going for. I drew up the designs for a van, a second sedan, a little tuk-tuk, a large lorry, which probably won't work in the game properly because of its size, a Reliant Robin style three-wheeler, and a little golf cart, all drawn in white to recolor with a shader. And speaking of, let's make that shader. I wanted to apply a color to the sprite similarly to what the basic sprite renderer does, except I only want to color in the white sections, and not the frame or tires, something the sprite renderer can't do. So I'm going to go ahead and create a shader graph. Now, I have very little experience with shader graph, but the one thing I have made before is a color swapping shader, so that's pretty convenient. First, I need to set up the inputs for the shader graph. So it needs the main texture, that'll just be the sprite set in the renderer, and if its reference is main text, or if you right click and set as main texture, that'll be connected automatically. I also need a color to change the car to. That's very simple. The first step is to sample the sprite with a sample texture 2D. I then multiply the RGBA output with the alpha again. You can see this weird stuff around the car isn't there anymore once I do that. I then need a blend node that is set to multiply the base of the car with the blend of the color. This is similar to how the sprite renderer colors things, but I need to pass a mask through as the opacity that only shows the white bits of the car. To do this, I need to break out the texture after the multiply and input it into a color mask node. On this node, if I set the mask color to white, increase the range to 1 so that it gets the darker shaded areas as well, and then connect that output to the blend node, you can see from here the car is now colored and the shading around the edges is still there. This can then go directly to the fragment base color alongside the alpha, and the car will be shaded in whatever color you choose in the material. If I right click on the graph asset, I can create a new material with this shader, pop it into the sprite renderer, and that is all done. A nicer looking color swap shader. Here's a little comparison between the two. You can see that one is clearly better looking than the other. Okay, that's the first stage all done. It's time to move on to the decals. These decals are going to be sprites that are applied on top of the car, like flames or racing stripes, and need to follow a similar path to the coloring. So it's back to paint.net to do some more drawing. I'm going to keep these very simple for now, but we'll design some proper ones later. Want to see anything in particular? Let me know and I'll see what I can do. Right, I've got all the decals on a sprite sheet, but the shader graph and all the rendering stuff just sees it as a single texture. So I have to do some UV calculations first. The UV coordinates are basically, well, coordinates, going from 0 to 1 across and up the texture. A single sprite's UVs are very simple, covering the full range from 0 to 1, but a sprite on a sheet is only a small percentage of that. On a 4x4 sprite sheet, for example, each sprite would be 0.25 units wide and tall. So if you tried laying one texture on top of the other without changing any UVs, you'd either see the entire sprite sheet or a stretched mismatched mess. Luckily for me, shader graph comes with plenty of nodes for this exact thing. So I sample the texture just like before, but this one needs the UVs to be set. If I get another reference to the decals here and get the texture size, I can work out the UVs. This outputs the width and height in both texels or texture pixels, and then the normalized UV versions. I just want the normal texel values and then divide both by 32. I'm hard coding this value because all of my decals are 32 pixels each, but I could also use an input value to set these in the material. I feed both of these into a flipbook node, which breaks down the texture into individual tiles, and when a tile index is passed in, it outputs the UVs for that specific tile. These UVs plug into the decal texture sample, and now it's ready to be applied to the car. The first step, again, is to multiply the RGBA by the alpha to remove any weird edge cases, and I also multiply the alpha of the decal and the color mask of the car together. What this does is make sure that only pixels that appear in both the mask and the decal are colored. So the windshield doesn't have a massive stripe painted on it, for example. This is all input into another blend node, this time set to overwrite, as I don't want the underlying color to affect the decal in any way. The last thing I added was a branch so that there's a toggle for decals completely. So if I need to hide them for any reason, I can with a simple ball. This is all fed into the fragment color, and as you can see on the preview, that looks exactly how it should. Let's just check that in game and, oh, that's not right at all. 1 second.
Yeah, that's one fine looking barbecue pit. Why doesn't mine look like that? Ah!
Okay, I have been going round and round in circles for hours. I tried it in a new scene where it's the same result. So then I tried it in another version of Unity to see if anything's going on there. It works in another version, so surely this wasn't a Unity 6 issue, was it? Well, I tried another project in Unity 6, and it worked. These kinds of things where the issue is like 100 steps removed are the absolute worst, and it took me a long time to realize what the problem was, and that comes back to UVs. I completely forgot that I had a sprite atlas with all of the sprites packed, which of course throws the UVs completely out of whack. I disabled the sprite atlas, and when you know, the problem was gone, the shader graph worked, and I could apply the textures just like I wanted to. Sprite atlases pack all of the sprites into a single texture, which optimizes texture performance as it doesn't have to load a lot of files individually. The reason I needed this was because Unity's tile maps have a bit of an issue with gaps, and the Sprite Atlas fixes these, but in turn obviously ruins what I want to do. So instead, I just have to narrow the focus of the Sprite Atlas to only do the environment textures, leave anything that will be affected by shaders out of it, and everything works nicely. So now, if I go to the scene, you can see all of these cars are changing color and applying the decal correctly. In game, when I program the change, these materials will obviously be instanced, so it only affects your car, and I can use other cars for decorations or competitors in future missions. And that is the foundation of character customization implemented into Zedcab. I'm going to now take some time to draw out more cars, decals, and anything extra for this, and then build the garage out so you can customize all of this in game. But that's going to be coming in a later video. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what sort of cars or decals I should add. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.